and these new, actually fake, or more like, converted Jews had come up with their own vision of God's will. The Sabbath was one of the reasons they wanted to kill Jesus. Jesus and his followers were seen plucking grain/corn, so the Jews used this to say that Jesus couldn't be the Son of God, because they claimed that he did not honor the Sabbath day. But Jesus told them that he was also the Lord of the Sabbath day, and that the Sabbath day was made for man, and not the other way around. If you look at it with wisdom, you can see that Jesus was trying to show the Jews that they have become fanatical about their religion and the Sabbath day. He asked them, "Why wouldn't you save your oxen if it was in a ditch on the Sabbath day?" That was paraphrased. Yet he held back from directly telling them that they messed up the Sabbath to prevent them from killing him sooner than wanted, which would have been against God's will. Jesus knew that Sabbath day was real and eternal, but he also knew that people had twisted its meaning. The Sabbath had gone from being rest for our body, mind, and spirit to working harder than secular work just to adhere to it. But even Jesus honored the Sabbath by not being resurrected on the Sabbath day. He waited till the first day of the week. So what do we know so far? Well, 1. The Sabbath day was given by God, and not changeable by man. 2. It was given as a rest day. Check the 10 Commandments. 3. Jesus honored the Sabbath, but knew that the Jews didn't know how to do it. 4. The Sabbath must exist if the 10 Commandments exist. 5. The 10 Commandments do still exist, and apply religiously and politically. 6. No one can change God's law except God. I heard misinformed people say that the Sabbath was nailed to the cross with the law when Jesus died. Well, the only thing that was nailed to the cross was the things that Moses was given the liberty to give to the Israelites. Those things were sacrifices, ceremonies, and ordinances that applied to their situation in the desert at that time. But the 10 Commandments were given exclusively by God. This wasn't Moses' opinion. God gave Moses the 10 Commands. The reason the other things were done away with was because Jesus died so that the majority of those things were no longer needed. There is no need to sacrifice animals, because Jesus was the last and ultimate sacrifice for sin on our planet. That's how the devil was defeated. Jesus died the death that we should have died, which nullified the lie that Satan was telling the angels and other beings in the universe about how unfair God was in his judgments about sin. I'll give more on that subject at another time. The Sabbath is a beautiful rest for those who want it. According to the Bible, most people never experience it because of unbelief. Oh no, you can't get the benefits of the Sabbath if you don't believe that it exists. The Bible says in the past people failed to enter into the Sabbath rest because of disobedience and unbelief. I'll tell you where to find that in a minute. Some will say that Paul said not to judge a person by a Sabbath day, etc. Well, they are right. But that doesn't mean the Sabbath day isn't still real. Paul didn't want to see any more discrimination, of which he was once king of. Let's wrap this one up. Know that Paul also stated the truth about the Sabbath day later in Hebrews. Read Hebrews 3:7-4:12. Here Paul was trying to clarify that the Sabbath still exists and will always exist. He talks about the Jews who didn't believe and died for it, and that the current people of God must make sure we are not guilty of the same thing. Now, once you've read Hebrews, then we should all have a common understanding. The Sabbath day still exists, and it is on the seventh day of any week in any time period. It doesn't matter about the calendar, or what era. It's about the seventh day, and for Saturday is the seventh day. You can verify that on any regular modern calendar. And you can also see that Sunday is the first day of the week. Here's some quick information for you. In 321 80 years after Jesus died, Constantine influenced the early Christian churches to worship on Sunday. He instituted a Sunday Sabbath-like day, somewhat in deference to the Jews of that time, and because of fear, some of the early Christian churches followed his decree. Reluctantly at first, but eventually Sunday became the day of worship for a lot of people. Then that was passed down. I'm just about finished now. Just because you believe in the Sabbath day doesn't mean you have to join the Seventh-day Adventist Church. In fact, there are many other different Sabbath-keeping churches all over the world. SDA is a good start, but let's point out the importance of the Sabbath first. The churches are secondary.